It's time for a tea break. We're in lockdown. Occasionally you need a tea break. This is the first of our tea break chats. I'll be doing them regularly throughout lockdown. 10-minute little bit of a chat for you to just consider while you're having a break from your work at home. Today we're going to talk about living with COVID-19. Joining me on the line are two friends and business contacts. We've got Robert Forrester, Chief Executive of Virtue Motors, and Ian Gilthorpe, Senior Partner of Square One Law. Let's talk to you both first of all about what you're doing this lockdown compared to the last lockdown. Robert first.
No, we've just applied the playbook. So this isn't a 23rd of March lockdown for us. This is the 15th of May lockdown. So we can deliver cars from outside of showrooms and do home deliveries. And I also think people are not in fear of their lives and to a great scale, which I think people were on the 23rd of March. So we have internet open, contact centres open. I've got sales teams actually in dealerships but unable to talk to customers in dealerships, but handling things online, over the phone, using a lot more technology that we've put in place since the last lockdown. Is it impacting sales? Of course it's impacting sales, but we're being quite innovative. Friday night we were worried about whether people would buy a car without a test drive. Some clearly won't, so we've now introduced a 14-day money-back guarantee.
So you can borrow a car for 2 weeks if you want.
Oh, well, you'd have to pay for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of chew to borrow a car for 2 weeks. I suggest you should go to Enterprise rather than come to us, buy a car and hand it back, if I'm honest. But I think it gives people confidence that they should be able to buy a car. But clearly, sales will be impacted.
Okay. Ian, what about you? Your office is up in Newcastle and one in Teesside and one in Leeds. What are you doing?
Well, again, we aren't looking at this as a first lockdown. We've learnt a lot from that. We've also put an awful lot of work into ensuring that all of our offices are COVID secure. So we're operating with a skeleton staff in the offices for tasks that really need to be done on site to ensure that all of our people working virtually can continue to deliver at the same sorts of levels that we've managed to achieve over the past 3 months.
Okay, and I'll answer the same question myself to provoke the next bit of discussion. In our business, I notice in the regulations filming and TV is allowed. So this TV studio I'm in now is open. We're doing programs like this throughout that will be used by the business community to stay in touch. For our emergency service, for crisis, we do have a very small skeleton crew in the office, and I'm operating a switchboard because that allows us to monitor the traffic in and out, and the finances, which are more difficult to do online because of financial security. We're doing that in the office. So we have a skeleton crew. It isn't all closed up like it was in March, but there is due cognizance of
I mean in fairness, Graham, in March we had 80% of people on furlough, and today I've got 80% of people in.
That's a very good way of expressing it. And in March, I perhaps in my small business of 15 had maybe 5 on furlough. I think there's 1 or 2 on furlough this week.
And obviously Scotland's completely open. We've got 12 dealerships in Scotland, and they are fully operational today.
Yeah, and of course, one thing that I've done is I've allowed a young person to come in for essential training. I hired this young person the week before lockdown. She's never worked in PR before, graduate, very capable young woman, and I don't want to destroy her opportunity by just having her learn at home. What are your views on young people and training them in this current pandemic? Ian first, then Robert.
Well, I think it's really very, very difficult because I think you lose an awful lot by not having people in the office, and it is around training and around supervision and people development. And I think that the government Kickstart initiative is an excellent one, and we could perhaps take two people. But whilst there's a danger that we're going to have them working virtually, I'm afraid we won't be able to do them justice, and therefore. I do wish that government would recognise how COVID secure and how much work has been put into creating COVID secure office environments.
Okay, I'm going to move on just the next area of topic. Here's Charlie Mullins, who's a London-based business, giving his view on the regional and then national lockdown.
You know what? Boris has done this so he won't upset voters in the north. He's playing politics with the livelihoods of the south of England by imposing this lockdown. when what he should be doing is adding a fourth tier to the worst parts of the country. I think the government is so desperate to keep in the good books of the people of the North that he's decided to chuck a net over all of us. Boris wants to avoid being accused of favouring London and the South over the areas where the virus is truly out of control. A lockdown is damaging in any area of the country, and doing it to parts of the country that don't need it is absolutely crazy. This will be incredibly damaging to all of us.
Robert, you've got a national firm. Do you think that this national lockdown is an appropriate reaction to the COVID panic?
No. It's clearly based on a dodgy dossier of absolute nonsense statistics that has been completely debunked by the Centre of Evidence-Based Medicine at Oxford University, which I follow avidly now. And for whatever reason, and I wouldn't like to speculate, they put us into lockdown. I think it's going to do far more harm. You've just discussed young people. I don't think getting to debate North versus South is helpful, to be honest. I think he's well known for his PR machine operations, so I won't bother commenting on that. The question is, should we be in national lockdown? Personally, I don't think we should. And I think we are in grave danger of doing irreparable damage to society and the economy in the North and the South.
All right. Ian, same question to you. What do you have to say on what Robert and Charlie have said?
Well, I can sense Charlie's frustration from what he said. I mean, what concerns me is that if people are knocked down once they get up quickly, there's been an enormous amount of time and effort put into getting these businesses up and running since the end of first lockdown. And I don't think that government appreciate that you can't start with businesses, because if you do that, you are going to do a considerable amount of damage.
Robert and Ian, you've seen in Liverpool they've got mass testing, which is seen by some politicians to be an antidote to lockdown. Namely, if you've tested everyone and people know they've got the virus, you can lock them down and not everyone else. What would you think about having the mass testing approach in the north of England? Robert first.
No great problem with mass testing as long as it's not mandatory. I have an absolutely major problem with the state deciding that they have control over people's bodies and whether they're being tested or not. And I would worry that if we accepted mass mandatory testing, we'd be then swiftly into mandatory vaccinations. And I'm sure lots of people will take the vaccine. I think everybody should make an individual decision on that. So I don't buy the argument, actually, that this is an either or. We need mass testing to escape the COVID crisis. I think the evidence points to the fact that we're going to have to live with this and get collective community immunity. And I don't think trying to chase a virus around the country is actually going to get us out of it. We've got to have a mindset change.
You could argue that more tests will result in more positives, and that will cause people to want the lockdown more.
Very interesting debate, actually, because if you actually define a COVID death is defined as somebody who dies of any cause within a 28-day period having had a COVID positive test. Now, you don't have to be a genius to work out, do you, that if you mass test millions of people and a certain number of people die each month, you are going to have an increase in COVID deaths. I mean, this is absolutely bonkers.
All right. Well, the last word I'm going to give to Ian, we've got about 20 seconds left. What's your view on mass testing?
I think I agree with Robert. Voluntarily is fine, but we are going to have to learn to live, work, enjoy life, create financial performance in this environment, in and out of rising infection levels for the next 12 to 18 months. We've just got to get used to it and work with it rather than against it.
Thank you very much to you both. A stimulating tea break chat. Thank you.